Okay, so we are back. So before the Shagalicious had some homework to do. I think I was very gracious. And I just gave him a little bit. Everything else I was kind of doing. But before this, I wondered what your history is slash was with this particular event.
Okay, so my personal history, not the lead up, but my personal history.
Your personal history.
I was deep, deep into the DC universe at that point. Like I was reading most of the titles. If I wasn't reading them, I was aware of what was going on in most of the titles at this point. So in that era around 2003 to 2005, I was very, very excited about DC stuff. I loved the direction they were going. I mean, really the people that were leading DC at that point were Jeff Johns, Greg Rucka, um, I'm blanking on the other guy, the guy who wrote
Dan
Green
DiDio?
Lantern. Well, of course, Dan DiDio, yeah. But the guy who wrote Under the Hood,
Oh.
blank, blanking on his name right now. I've met
Oh.
him. I Judd Winnick. Woof.
Yeah,
Okay.
Judd Winnick, yeah.
So those were kind of like the creative forces driving the DC at that point, and I was enjoying all their books, and so it was just a very exciting time for me to be reading this. So I was definitely excited about it. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story that apparently the whole idea for Infinite Crisis happened a couple years earlier. And if you read like the trade paperback, Dan DiDio talks about it and stuff like that, that they built to this for a couple years. And I think I was there when it happened, kind of
Mm.
sort of. In 2003 at Dragon Con, you had Greg Rucka, you had Judd Winnick, and you had Jeff Johns all together. And there were several panels with them. And one of the panels, I very specifically remember somehow they were talking about Crisis and the Crisis anniversary. And they said, we were talking at dinner last night and we came up with this big idea on how we could celebrate Crisis. We don't know if it can come to be, but if we can make it come to be, that would be pretty amazing. And I like, that may have been, that may have been at dinner the night before Dragon Con when they came up with the idea for Infinite Crisis. I like to think that's what happened. So.
So you were in the room when it happened, as Hamilton says.
Exactly in the
Oh
room when
my
it happened.
gosh. Yeah. For me, this is really you were already in it and in it deep, and this was the catalyst for me to get in deep.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had really up to now, I would say like a casual comics reader. I had Spider-Man. Spider-Man was my go-to guy. Really just starting, I think maybe my love of Babs and finding things with her, but I would just pick and choose, covers. Hey, this cover looks pretty cool. Let me look at this. And then Civil War, was coming out and this was coming out. And I thought, oh, maybe this is the time to start getting into the big two, Marvel and DC, because you've got these events. And as I've said before, and my comic origins, when I talk about this, is both the best time and the worst time to get in with an event, because the sheer amount, and even as I was reading it for this show, the sheer amount of characters is overwhelming. But because, and this is something I talked about with Kelly Thompson, actually something that we're losing is this engagement with text and people becoming lazy. Instead of just like scanning over and be like, well, they look cool, I was actually investigating, like, who is this person, what's their history, getting a DC encyclopedia and looking people up and figuring out who they are and what the significance is and was their death meaningful or not. And then, yeah, straight from here, I would, because this affected me deeply, as some of these deaths that we'll talk about, getting 52, because you've
Mm.
got this 1 year later jump. You want to figure out what happened in between. I was slightly disappointed, but 52 is a great series. I do recommend it. And just kind of going from there and starting Batman and this leads into a Batgirl coming back, and this is how Batgirl Oracle starts, so it's like all tied in. So this is very seminal to my comics history, so it is fun to look at this and read it again. So that's my history as well.
We actually have kind of an interesting parallel. I went
Oh.
through the same thing with the original Crisis. I was reading
Oh.
Crisis and I didn't know who all these characters were. And I got the who's who in the DC universe and literally would go page by page by page and read up on all these characters. I'd sit down and write all these lists of like, okay, this guy's from Earth 1, this guy's from Earth 2, this lady's from Earth 3, and who are these people? And try and keep track of it all because I desperately wanted to know. And you're right, it was all down. The research is what got me so excited about it. So, a lot of similarities there. Mine were just 20 years earlier. So,
Yeah, no worries. So now the big question is, and I do want to say before this that I think many people have done Infinite Crisis on a podcast before. Many people have done it super well, and I think you should go. I'm sure Michael Bailey has done Infinite Crisis, so I think you should go and seek that out because there's a lot that we're not going to do, like all the tie-ins that I think they're worthwhile to talk about, or even the lead-ins. And my focus is to give it the required review and Tom and Stella treatment, where it's like a book club. We're treating this as it's a self-contained story and looking at it in that way. But
So wait, did I get invited because I have a hairline similar to Tom's? Is that what happened?
I have a type, as they say. Oh, anywho, a platonic type, let's be clear. But yes, your homework, of course, since you
Wait,
chose to accept.
platonic. I'm just finding this out now. We've been
I
friends for
know.
10 years.
Wait, though,
Man.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yeah. You talked to your
Okay.
wife about that. Yes. What would somebody need to know to come into Infinite Crisis? Like, what are the big beats that kind of lead into this? That, hey, you should know this in order to understand the big story.
Sure, I approached it as that, but I also approached it as the whole run up
Oh,
to
yeah,
Infinite
please.
Crisis
Yeah,
because,
please.
and actually, it's sort of interesting when you talk about people having covered it before, like over on DC OCD with our friend Paul Hicks, like they covered the lead up to Infinite Crisis separate from Infinite Crisis itself
Oh,
because the lead up. You could measure the two very differently, and I would actually argue I think the lead up's a little bit better than Infinite
oh,
Crisis
interesting.
because it's so engaging, it gets you so excited. It is one of the best hype machines they've ever done for a series because it takes a year or so to really roll out. And by the end, you're like, oh, yes, please, we are here now. Which also, if you read all the lead up, it also helps you when you get to Infinite Crisis because there are so many characters. There is so much going on. And there's so much that doesn't happen in the book. It happens elsewhere that if you'd read the lead up, you can kind of at least muddle your way through. I think anybody who read Infinite Crisis as a standalone would have a hard time simply because of everything else. So the lead up starts through many of the monthly books. There's all kinds of things where there's schisms amongst the characters, but the big starting gun was Countdown to Infinite Crisis. And in fact, when it was originally advertised, it was just advertised as Countdown. And then when it came out, it says Countdown to Infinite Crisis. That was how they were announcing Infinite Crisis was coming. And it was a big, I don't know, like 80-page giant or something like that. And it sold at a very reasonable cost. And in there, spoilers, sorry, it's revealed that Maxwell Lord has turned evil and he kills Ted Gord, shoots him through the head. We see Batman starting to get involved with the Omax. Basically, all of the series, the spin off of this, start there in Confident Infinite Crisis. It's a bit of a teaser leading in there. So that sort of is the starting blocks. Meanwhile, there's another miniseries that none of us even realized would have anything to do with it. It's an Adam Strange miniseries that was subtitled Planet Heist. And it was sort of re-envisioning Adam Strange, making him kind of cool. But in that story, his planet of Ran disappeared. And he was trying to find it. And by the way, I did zero research for this because it's all up here. I know
That's cool.
the no, I'm bragging. I knew
Oh,
the lead
okay.
up to
I thought you
Infinite
were
Crisis.
apologizing like I didn't do
No,
any work because
no,
it's
no,
in my brain.
no.
Like, okay.
I wrote all this down, but like I didn't have to fact check anything
Okay.
because I know the lead up to
Oh
Infinite
no.
Crisis like the back of my hand. It's that
Okay.
good. So the Adam Strange miniseries had some of the most amazing artwork. It was absolutely stunning. Anyway, the story ends. They've kind of repositioned Adam Strange as kind of new and cool and hip, and his planet's gone. Oh, and suddenly it's in the same solar system as Thanagar, which
Mm.
then the Countdown to Infinite Crisis, and that leads you to four miniseries. They're all specifically designed to lead up to Infinite Crisis. You get the Rand Thanagar War, which many people consider to be the least interesting, but it's a big space battle where again the people from Rand, Adam Strange, the people from Thanagar, Hawkman, they're all battling each other for survival. Then there's the OMAC project, where Batman has created this satellite called Brother Eye, which has then created a bunch of OMACs that have gone out and they're transforming people. It's almost like the Human Sentinel program over in X-Men, really. But these people are being transformed into OMACs and they're attacking various groups and going out trying to hunt down all the metahumans. Quite frankly, OMAC Project's probably my least favorite of the four. But Villains United, which was no one expected this to be as great as it was. And of course, it becomes Secret Six down the line, but it brings a bunch of villains together with Catman and Ragdoll and, oh my gosh, uh, Savage's daughter. What's her name? Vandal Savage's daughter.
Oh.
You're really helping me here. Okay. Anyway,
You said you had the research.
Well, I didn't have to anyway. So it's a great series. Villains United is what eventually becomes the phenomenal Secret Six by Gail Simone. So it's a great series all about the bad guys and how they're coming together because there's a secret society of supervillains. I think they're just called Secret Society, but either way, they're working together. They're becoming organized just like the Justice League did. And then you've got Day of Vengeance, which focuses on all the magical characters. That's where you get Blue Devil. That's where you get Detective Chimp. That's where you get Ragman and Enchantress. And they're battling the Spectre, who's trying to destroy all of magic in the DC universe. And Days of Vengeance, that group will eventually go on to become Shadowpack as well. So those are your four main miniseries, which then all lead into Identity Crisis. Now there are, as I mentioned, there's other stuff going on in the DC universe, which also plays a role. Like Identity Crisis had, they dealt with mind wipes, right? Which becomes an issue. They dealt with the death of Sue Dibney, also carries on here. Then there's another like two-issue story, which nobody likes, called DC Special: The Return of Donna Troy. We're all thrilled Donna Troy came back. Everyone loves her. She's one of my absolute favorite characters. It's just not a good comic. Anyway, that also leads into Infinite Crisis. And if you hadn't read that, you might be a little confused on why she's got this new Kronos or whatever. Meanwhile, Batman Under the Hood is this storyline that took the country by storm, where Batman's facing a new Red Hood. The guy who was the Joker. He pulls off the hood, and it's Jason Todd. What? But he's dead. How? Well, Infinite Crisis answers that question for us. Actually, now I think about it, they don't actually answer it in Infinite Crisis because I just reread Infinite Crisis. They must have answered it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But Superboy breaking through is what caused Jason Todd to come back. Then over in JSA Classified, they're telling stories about Power Girl and how her origin doesn't make sense anymore. Who is she really? And there's 4 issues of that which are fantastic, asking you those questions. So all of this stuff is going on all across the DC universe. Oh, I forgot JLA. JLA had the Crisis of Conscience series. It was within their own series, but Jeff Johns wrote it, and it's basically dealing with the ramifications of post Mind Wipes. How the watch and it shows how the Watchtower was destroyed, leading in Infinite Crisis. So all of this stuff, I mean, really very sweeping across the whole DC line, or all of these stories being told that would then lead up to Infinite Crisis. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Now, did you read any of that going in Infinite Crisis, or did you start with Infinite Crisis and work backwards?
I started with Infinite Crisis and filled in where I felt the need to fill it. But I think
Okay.
at that point I was more about the main story,
Hmm.
and if there was something that interested me, like a character, for instance. I
Okay.
think I did that way more with Civil War, because
Yep.
definitely I started to go backwards and get like the Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, and see what was coming up. Identity Crisis is actually one of my favorite stories, in which I know that it's controversial take. Many, it's like people hate it or love it, but it is one of my favorite ones.
I
Um,
also love. I don't love everything that happened, but I love
no,
the
yeah,
story. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm happy to have that background as well. And yeah, I definitely, yeah, like Teen Titans was something that I started to go back in, because you see this love
Oh
between
yeah. That's a good point.
Cassie and Connor, and I would say Tim as well. And so I started to, see, oh, what's this team like, and check them out.
That's a good
Um,
point. I mean, because there is other books that play into
yeah,
this, like Gotham Central,
yeah,
because there's a bunch of stuff. And like, if you read Infinite Crisis by itself, there's stuff in there that probably doesn't make sense about the Spectre and about
right.
Jim Corrigan and about Crispin Allen. And over in Firestorm, there's stuff where they're bringing in Professor Stein, and Blue Beetle it's interesting. The Blue Beetle series had already started, but then when you get to Infinite Crisis, they're trying to tell you where those stories fit in. So like he gets the Scarab here. Well, he already had a few months earlier in the Blue Beetle book, things like that.
Yeah.
Nightwing with Bloodhaven, Flash. I mean, it's a crisis after all, so something's got to happen to a Flash. I mean, all these books were very heavily leading into this. So
Yeah. Do you feel like this is the best organized and designed event that DC has had?
I would say the lead up is the best
Okay.
organized and executed. I don't know that Infinite Crisis. I really feel like they're two separate things.
Okay.
I enjoy Infinite Crisis, but I also have a lot of issues with the way it was told,
Mm,
and certain elements of it. I feel like it's one of those where the buildup was amazing and didn't necessarily pay off everything they promised. I mean, you mentioned 52. That's a great example.
yeah.
52 is amazing.
Yeah.
52 is a wonderful series. It didn't fulfill what they promised it. They told us it would.
Yeah.
They told us they were. It's like, oh, now we're going to tell you everything that happened in that year you missed. We're going to find out about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Yeah. And the reason why I got that was because, which is something I'm going to cover with Tom next month because of Valentine's Day, is,
Because
uh,
Tom's your Valentine.
well, no, because the whole weird misalignment between Dick and Corey and Barbara.
Mm.
And the thing, like the annual, Nightwing annual too. Do you know
Okay.
about this scandalous stuff? And like him sleeping with Corey, but saying something about Babs,
Yeah,
and then
I
also
think
sleeping
so.
with Babs and leaving a wedding invitation on her nightstand. I don't know. But
But wait, that
anyways,
that doesn't have anything to do with 52.
well, you interrupted me. But
Oh,
anyways,
okay.
at the before he goes before he they go off, on their little Batman adventures, Dick proposes to Babs.
Okay.
But when they get back 1 year later, their engagement is broken. So
Okay.
then I thought, well, I need to find out what happened in 52. And so I thought I would see what happened in 52, but boy, you sure do not, because it's like Sue Dibney. There's like that whole cult
Yeah.
that you try to bring back. I would say the major stuff is Connor, Cassie, and Tim. And like they kiss awkwardly. Tim and Cassie,
Yeah.
over the shared grief. Introducing Kate Kane, I think, was a revelation as well.
It's
So there are some
awesome.
amazing things, but you're right that I felt lied to because I thought, oh, everything's gonna be they're going
Yep.
to fill in all those gaps. But actually, it was picking and choosing what they decided to do. So,
It's a great comic though. I mean, I cannot
oh,
recommend
yeah.
52 highly enough.
Yeah.
It's not what they promised. That's okay. And
No,
that's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And a weekly comic is um, what's the word?
Challenge.
It is a challenge to pick
Stephen
up.
Wack Stephen
That's
Wacker made that
big.
happen. Oh,
Yeah, I don't recommend. I then did it. I did Countdown after that. That was not. I should not have done that.
oh,
I regret doing Countdown. And
Countdown was
then
terrible.
because I messed up, I was like, I am not doing Trinity. I've learned my lesson. I'm not doing Trinity. But yeah, weekly comics are rough. Um, okay.
It's a brand new day.
It is a brand new day. I will say the only, I guess, tie-in that
That was a weekly comic joke. You missed it.
unfortunately, that was 3 times a month. I do remember
Oh,
getting all
okay.
of those. Those also were not worth it. That was a weird Spider-Man thing, and it makes me nervous about the brand new day movie that's coming out this summer.
Right.
So we'll see. Babs does appear in one of these. We're not going to cover it, but I just want to say that the Villains United Infinite Crisis Special #1, she does appear, and that came out. Well, the cover date was June 2006. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Dale Eaglesham,
Woohoo!
inker Art Tibbert and
T-Bear.
T Bear and Drew Geraci, and colorists Guy Major and Rob Schwager. And it's called A Hero Dies But Once. The publisher synopsis was ripped from the pages of Infinite Crisis. The society has orchestrated one of the biggest acts of terror the world has ever seen, a global prison break. But when all of Earth's mightiest heroes are missing in action, who will be there to stop the tide of evil that threatens to engulf the entire planet? So in my opinion, it shows the power and influence of Oracle. I mean, she is able to coordinate teams and individual heroes across the globe, partially with the help of Martian Manhunter. So I won't just like not mention him, and convinces heroes that she's never even spoken to before to like join up because they're like, who the heck are you? And she's like, it doesn't matter, but you should come and help us. This is also where we see that Batman is missing, that Tim is basically the only one in the cave, and Oracle was unaware that Nightwing was missing as well. So I at least wanted to say what Babs was doing at this particular time. But I'm
Awesome.
sure, yeah. So the main event is, of course, Infinite Crisis. It was 7 issues. It ran publication wise from December 2005 to June 2006. Created by Jeff Johns and Phil Jimenez and written by Jeff Johns. The pencilers were Phil Jimenez, Jerry Ordway, George Perez, and Ivan Reese, and inker Andy Lanning, and then colorist Jeremy Cox and Guy Major. Okay, the plot. Are you ready for the plot?
I'm gonna sit back because this is gonna take a while.
Oh no, is it that long? Okay. This comes from Wikipedia, so thank you very much, Wikipedia. The story begins in the wake of the 4 lead-in limited series with Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman feuding. The JLA watchtower destroyed, and the heroes of the world all facing a variety of menaces. Over this backdrop, Kal-El, like the letter, the Earth to
Single L.
yeah, the Earth to Superman, along with the Earth to Lois Lane, Earth 3, Alexander Luther Jr., and Superboy Prime, Heartthrob, escaped from the pocket. No, I'm just kidding. Escaped from the pocket universe to which they had initially fled at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Kal-El seeks out his cousin, Power Girl, also a survivor of Earth 2. Believing Lois's health will improve on her native world, he hopes to replace the current Earth with Earth 2, which he considers perfect. I will say that the art for Lois, this Lois, that like drastically differs. Sometimes she looked like a decaying corpse. Sometimes she just looked like a senior citizen. I was like, wow, she's on the way out. Yeah, there was just an inconsistency there. Kal-El tries to enlist Batman's support, stating that the post-crisis Earth's inherent quote unquote bad nature caused Batman's recent mistrust and hostility. Batman refuses and tries to use his kryptonite ring. This fails as the kryptonite is not native to Kal-El's universe, and Superman destroys it with his heat vision. Afterward, Batman learns Superboy Prime destroyed the JLA Watchtower. Yep. Alexander reveals to Power Girl that he and Superboy Prime had been leaving their paradise, quote unquote, for some time, manipulating events to help create an interdimensional tuning fork. Using the Anti Monitor's remains and captured heroes and villains attuned to former universes, Alex restores Earth 2, unpopulated except for the Earth 2 heroes transported there. Superboy Prime attacks Connor Kent, this world Superboy. Multiple super teams intervene. Superboy Prime kills Teen Titans members Panther, Baby Baby Wildebeest, and Bushido, and maims Risk, ripping off his right arm. I will also say, as a pause, that when I started reading this way back in 2006, this was the most violent comic I had ever read.
I'm
And I
glad you
will,
mentioned that.
yeah, and I will never forget the Psycho Pirate. And as I was rereading it this time, I was like, I'm like, I can't remember when it happens, but it's gonna happen. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. It was so violent. Yeah, we can talk about the violence. The Flashes and Kid Flash, Bart Allen, force Prime into the Speed Force, assisted by the speedsters already within it. Jay Garrick, the only speedster left behind, says the Speed Force is now gone. Seeking to create a perfect world, Alexander restores many alternate Earths. When Earth 2 Lois dies of old age, an aggrieved Kal-El and the younger post-crisis Superman Kal-El fight until Wonder Woman separates them. Bart Allen, wearing Barry Allen's costume and aged to adulthood, emerges from the Speed Force, warning that he and the other speedsters were unable to hold Superboy Prime, who returns wearing Anti-Monitor inspired armor that stores yellow sun radiation to empower him, making him even stronger. Heartthrob. Batman
Stop.
that could be like the trigger for people. They're going to get really upset. Batman Strike Force destroys Brother Eye, a satellite AI created by Batman that had gone rogue and begun transforming civilians into nano-infused robots geared to hunt down and exterminate supers. Alexander selects and merges alternate Earths, trying to create a quote unquote perfect Earth until Firestorm, your guy, blocks his efforts. Connor, Nightwing, and Wonder Girl release the tower's prisoners. Fighting each other, Connor and Superboy Prime collide with the tower, destroying it. The multiple Earths recombine into a quote unquote new Earth as Connor dies in Wonder Girl's arms. He's the real heartthrob, to be honest. Power Girl soon arrives and asks Kal-El what happened to Lois. The answer causes her to break down, prompting her to ask Kal-El why. He answers her simply, telling her it was because he chose the wrong Superboy to condemn and the wrong Superboy to condone. When a horde of supervillains attack Metropolis, heroes, current and retired, fly off to the rescue, and they are joined by the National Guard. The battle results in multiple deaths on both sides, including many by Superboy Prime himself, who kills villains and heroes alike. During the battle, Superboy Prime takes off to destroy Oa, planning to collapse the universe in a Big Bang event and recreate it with himself as the only superhero. Superboy Prime is slowed down by a 300-mile thick wall of willpower created by the Green Lantern Corps, but he kills 32 Green Lanterns before Kal-El carry him toward a kryptonite field surrounding the remnants of Krypton. The Superman flies Superboy through Krypton's red sun Rao, destroying his armor and causing all three Kryptonians' powers to diminish. Falling to the sentient planet and Green Lantern Corps members, Mogo, Oh, falling to the sentient planet and Green Lantern Corps member Mogo, they fight. Kal-El finally knocks Superboy Prime out before succumbing to kryptonite poisoning, and the older Superman Kal-El dies of his injuries. Back on Earth, Batman, struggling with Superboy's death and Nightwing's severe injuries sustained during the Metropolis battle, contemplates shooting Alex. Batman is dissuaded by Wonder Woman. Alex manages to escape. Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman later meet up in Gotham City. Wonder Woman plans to find out who she is. Batman plans a similar journey of self discovery, revisiting the training of his youth, this time with Dick Grayson, now healthier, and with Tim Drake joining him. Superman retires from superheroics until his powers return, focusing his career as a journalist in the meantime. I forgot that one of the main characters in 52 was Question, wasn't it? Renee Montoya, who I came from Nanda Parbat. Wasn't that one of
Hmm.
the subplots? Hiding in an alley in Gotham City and making new plans, Alexander Luthor is found by Lex Luthor and the Joker. The Joker mutilates Alexander by spraying acid onto his face, then electrifies it and kills Alexander by shooting him as Lex mocks him. And all this because Alexander would not allow Joker to be a part of the plan.
It was a pretty
The
cathartic release, I gotta say.
it was pretty nuts. The Green Lantern Corps imprisoned Superboy Prime inside a red Sun Eater. The series ends with him carving an S into his chest and declaring that he has escaped from worse prisons than this.
Dun, dun, dun,
I know
dun.
that's ends Infinite Crisis. So the question that Tom and I always start with is, did you like it or do you like it?
I'm a fan. And as I said, I was deeply immersed in DC at the time, right? So, I mean, reading the majority of the books, all the lead up, etc. So I was totally in on it. Plus, I was there for the original Crisis. So it felt like it was written for me. Like you mentioned all these characters. Like I can literally point to every character in the book. I think there was one character in the book I wasn't sure who they were. And I think it's because they were miscolored. I'm like, it might be
Oh.
so and so, and I think they're colored wrong. Like literally, I knew who every single character was. Now, that's a different question from do I think this was actually good?
Ah, it
That's a
is true.
very
That's
different that's a very
yeah.
different philosophical question, I think. So,
Well, how would you
do
answer
you
that?
was this good? I probably not. Maybe
Okay.
60-40. No.
Okay.
I got and all of that will come out through the discussion. But what about
Yeah.
you? Do you like it?
I do like it.
Yeah.
Yes. I think some things do get a bit muddled, even when I was reading it and having more knowledge. Its events are not perfect. I think you want readers to jump on and be excited and like want to start off, but it is so there. I was like, what is this new Chronos business? What's going on here? So there are certain things that are not new reader friendly. And even me having knowledge now, I also was like, huh, what's going on here? Um, yeah, but I think it's complicated. I think that there are complex characters. I think there are great character moments and moments overall in this. As for do I think that it is good? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10. Like this is
Right.
amazing. I think that there are some things that it seemed like we were going one way and then it shifted a little bit or took a turn. Yeah, I would say maybe it's like a B minus story, B minus C
No.
plus, something
That's a
like
lot
that.
higher than I rate it. But okay.
Oh no.
I mean,
Are you
part
C
of it is
minus B?
I kind of wish, as much as I enjoy it, I kind of wish it didn't exist. I feel like
Oh,
leaving Superman and Superboy and Lois and all that
yeah,
alone at the end of Crisis would have been the better choice.
yeah,
But
yeah. Do you think this was not one of the questions? So I did send him questions in advance if you're a fan of required
like
reading.
40
I don't
questions.
think so. But do you think that and this was we both read the trade paperback and I don't
Hmm.
know if you skimmed over or read that intro by
I
Dan
read it.
DiDio. Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Because there are two things that he said that I want to bring up. One of them was he was told by somebody, I don't know if it was Jim Shooter or not, that maybe am I wrong by throwing out the name Jim
Jim
Shooter?
Shooter's a Marvel
Okay.
editor. I think it's Paul Levitz, maybe you're thinking of.
Maybe that's who I was thinking of. Or he
Okay.
meant Jim. I don't know. But he was told by some mysterious figure that about every 10 years there needs to be some sort of major shakeup to clean up the universe and the
Hmm.
storylines and things like that. Do you agree with that statement?
I th there's two ways to look at these crossovers. One is that they are a house cleaning effort. The other is it increases sales. I mean, so do you need something big like this to increase sales every few years? Yes, you do. Now, do you need to clean house every year? So it depends on how messy you've let things get.
Yeah.
As much as I love the post-crisis universe, they did keep coming up with new ideas, which did mess up continuity, and the continuity nerds, like myself, got, bent when, Power Girl's origin doesn't make sense anymore, whatever. So, by the way, it was Julie Schwartz who said this to him.
Oh, I was close.
Yes.
They
So,
both
and
JS.
Okay, fair. And I don't know if I believe Dan DiDio, by the way. It doesn't
Okay.
sound like something Julie Schwartz would say because
Yeah.
he never did any big event crossovers. But um, so do they need it every 10 years? They need a big story every 10 years, probably, that teams everyone up. So that's fair. Well, do you think they need to clean house every 10 years?
I given the choice between something like this and something like New 52, I would choose an event like this rather
Mm,
than being like, we're starting from zero.
yeah,
Because at least we are keeping characters. We might just be merging histories, even though that can get really confusing. Yeah, because isn't Power Girl? Well, Supergirl also has a really complicated backstory from what I've read in Peter David's run. So it does. Some people, I think it needs to be uncomplicated. So I think there are some characters, and perhaps you can't just do that individually. You have to do that wholesale.
yeah,
And I would love for this to be about like, let's streamline things and also let's be on the same page. So everyone's doing the same thing. This is something I complain about with Barbara Gordon because I just don't understand what her mobility status. It
right.
depends on one writer to another, right? But could we have like consistency? So in that way, I think consistency or trying to pull things out from characters that don't make sense, I think that works. I don't like it when it's just a way, which it is obviously as a business, to make money.
Hmm.
Like, let's shake things up. And then you're killing off beloved characters that, was not good, or you're killing them in a way that had no emotional impact, which we can talk about some of these deaths and whether we agree or disagree that these were big deaths or not. So yeah, I would prefer this over something like New 52, which is like, okay, we're starting at the beginning of the universe.
Well, especially since they didn't plan that very thoroughly. They threw that together in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So they didn't really, if they'd planned it for a year or two, maybe. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
all done super fast.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you that's not on the list.
Hmm.
So do you know what, remember in this, Nightwing is injured horribly in this
Yeah.
series, right? Yeah. And are you aware, and I don't know whether it was actually going to be an Infinite Crisis or in general, but are you aware that Dan DiDio lobbied very heavily to kill Dick Grayson?
Yeah. I do
So
know
how
that.
would you have felt if Dick Grayson had died in this?
Boy, at this time when I was reading it, I don't know that I would have been as sad as
Okay.
I would later on because I think I did not know him because very much what I knew of Dick was more his relation to Barbara.
Hmm.
And so in reading Barbara, that's when I started to become more attached to Dick and his bottom, his shapely buttocks.
Well, the way you said dick in his bottom. But anyway. Uh,
His name's Dick Grayson. What do you want me
uh-huh.
to say?
Uh-huh. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So yeah, I am aware of that, which is interesting because he's given such a big role. So that was fighting me like internally. Like I was thinking, wow, Dan DiDio doesn't like Dick Grayson, and yet he's giving him some really big stuff to do in this particular story, which I found
Yeah.
very interesting. But potentially to heighten the impact. But also if I didn't like a character, I don't know that I would give him these big heroic moments, but he's the center of the argument for Batman. When Batman's talking to Kal-El, uh, basically his thing was, do you have a Nightwing on your Earth? What's Nightwing like? And then Kal-El's like, well, I just messed up, didn't I? Because you're
Yeah.
right. Not everyone is depraved and everything. Yeah.
So you said
But
there were two
yeah.
things in the introduction. What's the other one?
Oh, the other one, he says, which was a later question for me, he believes that there's no true villain in this story. And I wondered if you agree or disagree with that.
Completely disagree. There's absolutely there's
He's
Alexander Luthor.
misunderstood.
Well, yeah, that's what the argument he tries to make is that Alexander Luthor and Superboy Prime are misunderstood. No, they're
Yeah.
absolutely the villains of the piece. I would also question. I mean, this is something I had in my notes later, but like, is Superboy Prime really worth being
Mm.
the big bad? Like, is this a good enough character the way he is on the page, do you really connect with him as a villain enough to go like, yeah, this is a great villain? Or is it like, oh, he's an obnoxious, can I curse on your show? I don't really know.
You
Um,
can on this, and then I'll bleep it out
okay.
later
Yeah,
on.
is this little obnoxious shit worth being, the big bad that kills Superman, the very first superhero from 1938? Is he really worth it? No, no, he's
Mm,
not. He's an obnoxious little turd. He is in a video game sense, he's one of the side bosses, your level bosses you fight, not the end boss.
yeah.
And here he was even though Alexander Luthor's really the power, Superboy Prime was pretty much the big boss in the fights.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. That I think was the shocking bit is that he seems to have the quote unquote right motivations. And he's just like really immature. And I think it's all encapsulated the first time he killed that one character. I'm not sure which one it was specifically. I'm so
Oh, he
sorry.
punches Panther's head clean
That's
off.
who it was. And then he's like, I didn't mean to. You all made me do that.
Hmm.
And that whole thing. But then when the flashes took him off, I was like, okay, that's it. Like he's now done, even though we had to sacrifice. I love that scene, by the way, because Jay was like, my ligaments are tearing. I need to stop. I was like, this is really realistic because this would actually
Hmm.
happen. But
Okay.
like just leave him. And then we're having to worry about Alexander Luthor potentially. And then when he comes back, yeah, I thought, oh, I don't know if this is the one. Because when you look at him versus the anti-monitor, it's just like they're not on par,
Right. Exactly.
or dark side or
Exactly.
something like that. Yeah. So, and then I guess he just in that time he was away, he just became super duper evil. And I wondered, is that did what were we showing that? Or was it yeah, because I feel like even in like he shouldn't have punched Panther in that way, but it was like a child. But then all of a
Yeah.
sudden he became just like super duper evil. That was one of the
Yeah.
changes, like the turn that I thought, oh, did we develop that enough? I don't know.
It wasn't earned. No,
Yeah.
not at all. And then the armor and then the big battle with the Superman at the end, it
Yeah.
just like they felt like you were fighting the wrong guy. It
Yeah.
just didn't feel like he should be the guy they should be fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Well, I know I'm jumping all over the board, but
No,
since we're
we
spending
can.
time talking
And
about Superboy
yeah, and I
Prime
just want to say, like, with these, no particular order. So, I mean, hop along as you would like. Yeah.
with these AI generated questions that you
Yep.
came up with.
100%. Yeah. Dear
So
Chat GPT.
so we're talking about Superboy Prime. Let's
Yep.
talk about Superboy Prime.
Okay.
So how do you feel about him? And you understand what Jeff Johns was going for when he created this character, right?
Maybe not when you phrase it like that.
It's in the questions, so
Oh, what I, well, I mean, I see, is he a tragic figure, a cautionary tale, or
right.
simply a monster?
And then how does Superboy Prime function as a stand-in for fan frustration or
Oh, I
entitlement?
see. I see. Okay.
Do you not know the story behind that?
I don't know that this came
Okay.
from Chat GPT, as I
Okay.
said. So,
So
I mean, yeah.
when Jeff Johns created Superboy Prime,
Yeah.
he basically is supposed to represent angry fanboys.
I see.
He's whining. He keeps saying, "You ruined it. You ruined all of it." It's basically supposed to be all the fanboys that complained and screamed that they didn't like what happened in Crisis and how they wanted, their multiple Earths back. I mean, Johns was specifically making fun of his reader base when he did this, and I didn't know it at the time,
Yeah.
and I realized it later. Someone pointed it out to me, and so I wasn't as offended then. Like I didn't like the character, but I wasn't as offended personally then as I am now. It's like, oh wow, thanks, Jeff. Do you really think you should be targeting the people who are kind of paying your paycheck? Um, so yes, I'm trying to find my notes here. Okay, so yes, he's a stand-in for fan entitlement. Jeff Johns, what he's basically trying to say through this is that the writers know better, and the fanboys are obnoxious because they're crying out, they're screaming, they're upset, they're making a lot of noise, and that it would be dangerous if the writers were to appease the fanboys. Like if you appease Superboy Prime, that would be bad for the story. So that's kind of what he's saying. And again, having that be the big bad at the end really isn't a good idea, I think, too.
Yeah. I guess if you're attacking the fandom, do you think it's fanboys at large or the ones that really go off the deep end? Or were people going off the deep end at that point? Because now I think we're in a very dangerous time with how if I were to generalize, but I think it's probably true statistically, the men um really go I mean, statistic, I don't have the thing, but it typically is, men are just going like really off and attacking people and things like that.
Sure.
Are those more the ones that he's going after? Or do you think it really was you who's, a fan, but a good-natured fan?
He wasn't, no, he wasn't necessarily attacking me. It was, this is the early days of the internet. So
Yeah.
this is going after the ones that are out on the message boards, screaming and ranting. It's the far extremes. Unfortunately, I would say, by the way, nowadays I think we have extreme nutso people on both sides. Unfortunately,
Of the
I'm not
gender
saying men
spectrum?
versus. There's some in gender spectrum, but there's also whether you're left wing or right wing, whatever. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I
Oh,
think.
I was just talking about the comic fans, but
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
not
Okay.
politically. Oh, I agree politically. Yes,
So you're saying
absolutely. Yeah.
girls don't read comics? Okay.
I do, but I
Um,
don't think they're the ones that are getting that intense in the
Nah,
discourse.
probably not. Probably
Okay.
not. Probably not. I mean, social media is one of the worst inventions that ever happened. I love it because it helps me stay in touch with my friends, but it's
Yeah.
also just feeds the worst habits.
Yeah.
Um, so it's sort of those people that we didn't have social media back then, but we had message boards. We had letter writing campaigns. We had, the Hal Jordan versus Kyle Rayner battle of heat, where people were
Yeah.
taking out ads in magazines saying fire the writers at DC. So I think yes, he's going after the toxic loud fanboys. But in general, those are still people buying the comics.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you to you as well as this question that I didn't know that. So I learned a great deal.
Okay.
Yeah. So then would you say he's a cautionary tale?
No, he's a monster.
He's a
I
monster?
mean, because that's the way the question is posed. Is he a
Yeah.
cautionary tale or a monster? He's absolutely just a monster. He's, as you said, a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And you made a great observation that they really didn't develop him halfway through the series. He
Yeah.
starts off as someone who's unhappy. Things get way out of control. He's
Yeah.
punching his fist through people's heads, and then suddenly he's an evil guy, twirling
Yeah.
his mustache for no reason. So yeah, what about you? Where do you think he's a tragic figure, a cautionary tale, or simply a monster?
I would say it tragic, which then turned into a monster. If only because I can feel, that whole group of people, with the exception of Alexander Luthor, because I think he was always lying, because Psycho Pirate, I think at one point said, I sense deception in you, or like you're not as
Hmm.
broken up about Lois's death as you're appearing to be. But everyone else like just wanted this, a happy and healthy and loving society. And Superboy feels displaced. I think a lot of people can relate to that nowadays too, being displaced. So I feel like there's a lot of like empathy I can have for him. But once he comes back from his prison slash the Speed Force, like yeah, that's the change right there.
I feel like it was more of a tell than show in that regard, as far as him being a tragic character. I feel like they
Mm,
told us
yeah,
he's a tragic character, and I certainly think Jeff Johns in editorial thought he was a tragic character,
yeah,
and they kept thinking he was a tragic character through Sinister Corps War and more.
yeah,
But I feel like that was more of a case of tell, not show. I don't feel like they
yeah,
showed us what he lost or how he was emotionally affected. It was just him yelling at Power Girl, going, "We should get it all back. We should get it all
yeah.
back."
That is true because we do get some with that one page of info dumping, which I could not believe that they did that. But we get flashbacks with Lois and Superman. And that amazing double page spread, I think, when Supergirl, Power Girl gets her memory back and gets to see
Yeah.
all that. So you get to see all that, but we don't get any, yeah, what was his life like? So you're right about that. Everyone else gets that sort of story.
I mean, the whole thing with Superboy Prime was he's from a world that was supposed to be literally our Earth, where DC Comics were published, and he was the only person to ever develop superpowers on that planet. That's all from Crisis on Infinite Earths. None of that is explained here in
Yeah.
Infinite Crisis. They don't tell you any of that. So I feel like again, it's more of a tell than show.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you can't tell, I don't like Superboy Prime.
I guess not. Yeah. So that's why you didn't like when I called him Heartthrob.
Exactly right.
What about Alexander Luthor? Do you feel like he differs from traditional villains in motivation and execution?
Yeah, I think he was executed a lot better because I mean, in his mind, he's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Your best villains are not the mustache twirling guys that want to destroy the world because they live in the world too. Your
Yeah.
best villains are the ones who think they know how to run things better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's trying to do. He thinks he's trying to make the universe a better place. So I
Yeah.
think his motivation works. I love his comeuppance at the end,
Yeah.
where he kept the Joker out and it ends up getting him killed. I love the idea that he posed as Lex Luthor. So as much as I couldn't stand Alexander Luthor in Crisis on Earth. I thought he was just a wet mop and annoying. In Infinite Crisis, I think he functions a lot better.
Yeah, I appreciate also, I think he's written well in terms of they thought out what he was doing.
Hmm.
Because once it's revealed, how he was using Psycho Pirate, how he was being the other Lex, the people, the villains that he got involved, all of this, I was like, wow, that was really like seated very well. And then, yes, with the Joker, you wonder what it seems like a throwaway scene where he's beating up, I think, King, wasn't it?
It was the Royal Flush Gang, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And basically he's found out like he wasn't allowed to play and he's super upset. And then which you understand because you already have one, I would say Psycho Pirate is kind of the one that you got to be careful of that he could just do whatever. But with Joker, you really can't count on him for being consistent. And so I think that's wise, but he did not like being left out. He had FOMO and it caused his death. Yeah. Um what do you think about? Do you remember that one page that is in sepia tone? And I think it's when Alexander is explaining to Power Girl everything after she sees that tower. What are your thoughts on info dumping in that way? Because he explains the entire thing in one page. And for me, I thought that that was poor writing, even though I appreciated the explanation, but just to have everything put right there.
I'm trying to find it. I mean, I see
Yeah.
in issue two, I see several pages of him telling the whole story of the DC universe, basically. I don't see the sepia tone page, so I'm not sure which one you mean, but there's a lot of info dump. You're right.
Yeah.
And this is where I have a hard time separating myself, the fanboy, from someone who would have read this for the first time, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, all of this stuff I knew intimately. Like I knew every detail of these. I knew the stories. I read them or at least was aware of them. So all of it was like, oh yeah, more, give me more, give me. Yeah, I love flashbacks, you know. And so I don't know that I can comment on that. But as someone who came to this new, I obviously it didn't sit well with you, right?
Yeah, no, I just don't like people. I think it goes back to the show not tell that
Hmm.
if you have that many boxes, I think that that's an issue and it should have been threaded throughout rather than this. And I guess, that's what happens with villains or antagonists, depending on if you agree with Dio or not, in that they usually, I'm thinking of Spectre with James Bond, they usually lay out their whole thing in one shebang, but it was a lot. It was like Grant Morrison a lot, Scott Snyder a lot. It was just all on one page. You'd wait out the whole thing. And I thought this is not the way to do it. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, do you want to talk about the violence?
Sure.
And then I do
Do
want to
you
talk
think there was
about
some?
my word. Yeah. Violence. We'll talk about violence, tone, and deaths. So we'll kind of lump all those together. I could tell. I knew it was going to drop off. Yeah, I guess I'll ask the dumb question, but do you feel like this was overly violent
Oh yeah.
for a teen comic in the big two that is not, yeah, it's not what is it? Black Label? No, whatever,
No, it's
mature
not a Black
reader, I
Label, that's
guess.
for sure. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think that it warranted, like this story warranted
No, no,
okay.
it actually felt mean-spirited. Like
Okay.
issue, and it starts in issue one when they slaughter the freedom fighters. The
Yeah.
villains slaughter the Uncle Sam's team. They
Yeah.
slaughter them in such a vicious and they demonstrated it on the page. I mean, you can murder someone in a story and not show. Sometimes
Right.
you can tell more without showing stuff. There's way
Yeah.
to yeah. This was a wholesale slaughter,
Yeah.
and I get the idea that what they're trying to demonstrate is darkest before the dawn, or you got to hit rock bottom, or whatever, right? The good guys are on the ropes. But again, the violence just felt mean-spirited. And then you go to issue two, when we talked about already, Superboy punching Panther's head off, ripping off Risk's arm.
Yeah.
It just felt like someone in taking too much joy. Torture porn is what it felt like. So
Yeah.
the violence did not sit well. And then, like you said, the Psycho Pirate later with, you know,
My
right.
gosh. With
It
Black
just
Adam. Yeah.
way too much relied on shock value and
Yeah.
extreme violence rather than setting things up. Like you can go for a darker tone, um, but I feel like this more instead came from a darker place. The writing
Okay.
did.
Do you think this is connected to Jeff Johns's? I don't know, subversive idea of what he's going after.
He wrote it.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's connected to a subversive idea. I think sometimes, at least at this point in his storytelling, he thought extreme violence was a useful storytelling technique
Wow.
that I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have read all of Invincible, which is probably the most violent comic I've ever read, with the exception of maybe Walking Dead, but that was too dark that I had to stop. I just couldn't do it.
Hmm.
But this is like something I would see in the Invincible comic,
Yeah.
which is definitely a mature title. And I was certainly shocked because I was reading Spider-Man up to there. This doesn't happen in Spider-Man. So yeah, I don't know if that's a way to bring people in, thinking like, yeah, these aren't your dad's comics, we're
Right.
we're edgy, and bringing, yeah, but it was a lot, and a lot of it, I think you're right about the mean spirited is it really is beating you down because you're not only watching characters that you might love. I didn't have as many like close connections as other people might, but I think Human Bomb kills his own people by accident
Hmm.
because he's getting attacked and he's like losing his containment field. It seemed like maybe his girlfriend. So it's just,
Well, Phantom Lady. But yeah, and
maybe I'm
then
wrong, but yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh. So they're not just dying, but it's like they're causing collateral damage to other people that they're close to. It was really over the top.
there's panels of Bizarro, if I remember right, just beating Atomic Bomb to death, just
Yeah.
over panel after panel after
Oh,
panel
maybe it
after
was
panel
Atomic
after
Bomb.
panel,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just absolutely terrible.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
And again, you can still show that all these people died without
Yeah.
that kind of imagery that
Yeah.
wasn't necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the better fight and violence and something that's more medium to it would have been Kal-El versus Kal-El,
Mm.
because I think you get the emotion of one attacking the other, which of course is, heroes fighting heroes. I always have a problem with that. But you understand the reason behind it, but I feel like we're not, I don't know, mass number of people aren't being killed in
Yeah.
their fight and everything. So I felt like maybe that would be a bit better. So then the sacrifices, which I would count maybe Connor's because I think he knew exactly what he was doing. Are they meaningful, or because of this violence, do you think that takes away from deaths?
Well, Dan DiDio in the introduction, he has a quote. He says, what the true story is here. He says, the true story of Imminent Crisis is the measures of determination and self-sacrifice needed to be a hero in the DC universe. Um, and you're right. There were a lot of sacrifices in here. I feel like approaching this story in that way, though, is a bit of a, not you, but Dan DiDio's, is a bit of a misguided premise. Like, if you build your story around who dies
Mm-hmm.
and how they die, you're just going for the shock or the emotional value. You're not thinking. You're only thinking about the destination, not the journey. The story has to tell the journey, which makes that death meaningful. I would say Superboy's death, Connor Kent, is probably the only death I felt was meaningful because they set that up for many issues of him, not hiding out, but sort of staying in
Yeah.
Smallville, not getting involved, finally gets involved, blah blah. So I feel like his death is probably one of the only ones that felt worthwhile. Like the death of Superman from Earth 2, he just died in a fight.
Yeah.
You know, he fought Superboy Prime to death, or really Superboy Prime just beat him to death. I didn't feel like that was worthy of this story was not worthy of his death. I don't feel like again the very first superhero, 1938. The very first published superhero, and he gets murdered in this story, and I don't think this story deserves it.
Yeah. And I only felt his death and Lois's death because of Power Girl,
Yeah,
because of her emotional reaction to them, because they were very much her
that's
parents,
fair.
it seemed
Hmm.
like. Yeah. So that's also hard. But with Connor, yeah, you're right, because you're following Connor around. I think there's a lot of things that we can take from his discussion with Superboy Prime in, feeling like a fraud, who is the actual hero of these two, and does he deserve to wear that emblem? And I think finally owning that yeah, he is the hero. He does deserve to wear that S. I thought that was very beautiful, but of course it comes at the cost of his life. And then you see the people around him, in particular Cassie and Tim. So again, yeah, having that. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think also there were so many deaths. I mean, it really was a slaughter that then after like the fifth one, you're like, oh my gosh,
Right.
am I supposed to feel anything anymore about this? So,
A- And it's worth
yeah,
saying, like the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. I mean, if you think about, yes, the entire universes were destroyed, so lots and billions have died, but you didn't see that, right? They didn't
yeah,
spend time on that. Instead, there were really only a handful of deaths that happen. I mean, Barry Allen happens, Supergirl happens. Then you get a bunch of minor characters like Cole who dies. She was created literally just to die in Crisis.
mm,
Actually, that's the whole reason she was created. And then you do lose a lot of the Golden Age characters, but it's not a wholesale slaughter of them. You lose Huntress. I think a bunch of rocks fall on her or something like that or
mm,
whatever. But here it's just slaughter, 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 and you get to watch it all happen.
yeah, it's a lot. Okay, well, we'll move on from that. Do you want to talk about the Trinity? If you've not heard this before and you're religious, it's not that Trinity, but it is Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Um, yes, I do want to talk about Batjerk because I have some issues with what he does here, and I wonder if you have a thought. But um, which member of the Trinity do you feel like changed the most during this
I want to hear
storyline
your answer
and
first.
plot? Who changed the most?
Mhm. You act surprised at the question you just asked. What?
What a great question.
That's a stalling technique.
Yeah, thank you. I would say, well, I was going back and forth between two, but I think between the two, it would be Batman.
Interesting.
Yes, the other
Between the
person I was,
two, there's a trinity. There's three of them,
I
by the way.
know, but I don't think that Superman changed at all. I think it's pretty consistent. It would be between Wonder Woman and Batman. But I
Yep.
think Wonder Woman's it's a bit false to say because I think everyone's like, oh, she killed Maxwell Lord, so everyone thinks she's gonna do it again because she flies with that sword and she's like, I was just gonna pin him. So it was just that one thing, that one guy that she killed, and that's it. But I think Batman, because of this, which I want to talk about, Brother Eye, but because of his distrust and just his general negativity, and then, oh my gosh, he was going to kill someone with a gun. And then he steps away and sort of reevaluates. I think he goes through a whole like arc.
All
So
right.
that's what I would
I,
say.
I'm
What would you say?
I think it's Wonder Woman. Um,
Whoa, okay.
but I don't think it's earned. Here's the problem
Oh,
is so she crosses the line killing Maxwell Lord. Absolutely.
yeah,
And by the end, she throw not just the thing about pinning the guy, but she also throws her sword down. Like when Batman's holding the gun, she
yeah,
breaks her sword to demonstrate that we shouldn't be killing, right?
yeah, yep.
So she's trying to say that she's, going back to peace rather than murder. However, we don't actually see her go through any kind of journey there. Like, there's one scene where the Omax are attacking Themyscira, and Wonder Woman says, "No, we need to stop fighting because there's just more of them coming." And
Yep.
Themyscira, you need to go away. And maybe editorially they thought that was a big emotional moment for
Mm,
her. I didn't see that as, I saw that as tactics. That was just a tactic to win the fight, is the way I saw it. I didn't see Wonder Woman turning a corner there. So I feel like the writers thought Wonder Woman had the biggest journey and the biggest change, but I don't think it's earned. I don't think again, it's tell not show. I don't think they showed us Wonder Woman actually go through that change.
do you feel like Wonder Woman had, after Maxwell Lord, she was completely changed and she was tending towards violence? So you
On
too thought maybe she was going to kill, who was it?
whoever it was, I don't
Mongol?
even.
I think it
Oh,
was
was it Mongo?
Mongol,
Okay,
wasn't it? Yeah, and not pin
yeah.
him.
The problem, my problem there is her killing Maxwell Lord was so editorially mandated.
I see.
It felt completely out of left field for her.
Okay. Okay.
Now, it's probably the right choice because the version they had built Maxwell Lord up to be at that point, there really was no way to defeat him because he could just keep using his mind powers.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you could imprison him or anything like that. But they
Yeah.
fought mind control people before. They fought Grodd before. They
Sure.
found ways around it. So her killing Maxwell Lord felt like completely out of character. Felt like the editorial needed that to happen. So I've always had a hard time with that death. Simply,
I
well,
see.
multiple levels. Maxwell Lord's not a villain. That's stupid what they did, but it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so her, is she going to kill? I didn't think she was going to kill anyone else because Wonder Woman wouldn't have killed Maxwell Lord to start with.
Yeah. Do you feel like she can be forgiven? for this transgression?
Killing Maxwell Lord.
Yeah.
Um, I you're asking the wrong guy.
Well, I just wonder, well, because I have a question about crossing moral lines, and I feel like
Okay.
she might be the big one who crosses a moral line. And I just wonder, is it possible for her to come back from that
Yeah, I mean, do you mean in the public's eye or as a hero?
as a hero?
Yeah, I think she absolutely could come back from that. She,
Okay.
realized her error of her ways. Yeah. The
Okay.
public eye, I don't know. I mean, people had everyone on TV watched her break a guy's neck.
Yeah.
Um, but then again, the guy really deserved it.
Memory is
So,
long. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Although,
oftentimes people do not like recognize those things, right?
yeah. I
They
mean,
just
and
see the outcome,
if we've proved anything in this country in the last few years, you can forget about something a week after it happens anyway, and no matter how awful somebody is.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bat Jerk, he's got this surveillance system.
Yep.
He's got, Omax, Brother Eye, all of that stuff. I do wonder because you've been around the block, as they say. Has he not learned from Tower of Babel and War Games? Is what is doing justified? Can it be explained by Psychopirate? Is this we just say it's Psychopirate because he was manipulating his paranoia, and then that is that it? What are your thoughts?
I didn't even pick up. Was that in the story? Was Psycho
Well,
Pirate
wasn't
manipulating Batman?
see, I wish that we could have that. Well, he manipulated it's in that sepia tone drop thing. And if
You're gonna have to
I
find this
put
page. I'm
I
looking at these.
know if I pull it up, I don't know if I'm going to be able
Okay.
to find it. But
I don't.
in one of the things, the boxes talks about how he was at least manipulating the villains things. But I thought
Okay.
that he also mentioned, see, now I need evidence to back up my claim that he was manipulating how a certain other people were acting, which could potentially explain Wonder Woman too. But see, I don't have my thing.
Well, I think there's no way Batman comes back from this because I mean, like you said, the first thing I thought it was Tower of Babel. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Tower of Babel and Batman, and he didn't learn his lesson. So that tells me I think he's actually got the bigger moral transgression than Wonder Woman. She, in the heat of the moment, killed one guy who was absolutely terrible with no way to potentially beat him. Whereas Batman systematically created another system to spy on people and manipulate people and go uber control freak. And so, yeah, and also, here's the other thing. Wonder Woman broke the sword, said it's time for peace. I didn't see Batman seek penance. I mean, you said you thought you saw him go through a change there. I didn't see him seek penance. I just saw him trying to stop Brother Eye. I don't remember him. Now he said he's going to go on a boat journey with his friends. Woohoo hoo! But I don't see Batman remorseful for what he did.
Oh, well, is Batman ever remorseful?
Well, but I mean, the question is about their journey and the changes they went through. So I'm saying he didn't. How's
Um,
your research going?
yeah, I know. Let me. Okay, so I did find. I think this is issue 4. If I'm looking, it's page 99 on the trade. But I did find the sepia tone. I guess it's not technically. In my mind, it was sepia tone, but the whole page of info dumping and talking about Psychopirate. Psychopirate helped orchestrate the seduction of the Spectre by manipulating his enemy. On the next page, Karen, that's her name, right? That's
Yep.
okay. I got an ad to see what happens when you're on something else. It says she says, sorry, all this manipulation, the Psychopirate, that's why Wonder Woman killed Maxwell Lord, why Batman got so damn paranoid, why Superman failed to keep them all together. So I can't
Okay.
remember
Well,
what
there we
my
go.
original point was, but yes. So
You were saying
I guess it
Batman
was just
created
about.
Brother Eye because of Psycho Pirate. Yes.
Oh, okay. So there, yeah. That's an easy answer, right? But I mean, yeah, I guess I just wish, even though you are being externally manipulated by somebody who arguably has pretty powerful powers, not to be superfluous there. He's done this before to disastrous and deadly effect. And I just feel like enough is enough with him trying to quote unquote help out, which makes me proud of how he stood up against Cal El because Kal-El is offering this sort of utopia and being like, it might be a place where Thomas and Martha aren't killed. But I think Superman or Batman in that moment realizes like that sort of place doesn't exist. Because if you have a Nightwing, then that means that you've got corruption too, potentially. So
No,
if
what
you
he
have a
was
Nightwing.
saying was, you see, okay, Batman was already dead on Earth 2. So there was a
Oh,
Batman. The
yeah.
Batman was dead. So what he was saying is it's a world where things are better. He even acknowledges that even though my Batman was dead by this point, and because I have issues with this Earth 2 concept too, by the way.
Oh,
Anyway, so the Nightwing piece would instead was all about how he was good, how everyone is corrupt on this world except for Nightwing.
yeah.
So he's saying, is your Dick Grayson as much of a stand-up guy as
Yeah.
Nightwing? And now Dick Grayson Earth 2 was a fine guy. There's nothing wrong with him, but he was no Nightwing. So,
Oh, I see. I see. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so just logical fallacies there.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if the people would listen if we explained about Wonder Woman and said she was manipulated by Psychopirate. This was not of her own control in killing Maxwell Lord. But it is interesting that all of that was explained with Psychopirate in particular.
Again, that's a heat of the moment, one-time action. Batman's planning would have took weeks or months,
I know, I
and so
know.
he could have come to his senses at that point.
Yeah,
Now, I want
that's
to
true.
talk a couple more questions about the Trinity real quick.
Please.
Like, there's questions like, how is the Trinity's fractured relationship central
Yeah,
to the conflict?
yeah.
And it says, does the story reaffirm or challenge their roles as the moral anchors of the DC universe? And this brings up an interesting point. Well, the Trinity were important to the story. I don't feel like they're the main characters.
I would
To
agree.
me, this Infinite Crisis felt more like a Superman of Earth 2 story, or maybe even a Superboy Prime story, or an Alexander Luthor story, or Power Girl story. The Trinity are in it, and
Yeah,
they're certainly a big part of the crossover books, but the actual Infinite Crisis, if you read it in and of itself, they don't feel that involved in it. So,
yeah. They're just on the outskirts. I would say it's more the people that are related to them.
yeah, yeah,
Cassie and well, Wonder Girl and Nightwing
Superboy, yep,
and yeah, and Superboy. It's really the next generation,
yep,
I think. Yeah.
agreed.
But potentially their fractured relationship is maybe what makes everybody vulnerable. What do you think?
I
Because
just
they're at odds with each other, this sort of thing is able to creep in.
I just feel like it's again editorially mandated to say make Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman fight each other and be mad at each other. I mean, Batman has
Yeah.
one of the greatest lines of comics in decades, which is where he says to Superman, "The last time you inspired anyone is when you died." I mean, that's a phenomenal line. It's
Yeah.
great, but it just feels like editorial is saying you have to do these things, and and now once you throw in the Psycho Pirate manipulated all this, okay,
Yeah.
then I can get to understanding why they got to this point. But otherwise, it just feels forced.
Yeah. I thought there was a question about next generation, but I can't remember.
I don't necessarily see that specifically.
That's okay.
Well, I did want to talk about the whole Earth 2 idea.
Yeah.
So
And co-op
Superman,
realities.
yeah, right. Superman of Earth 2 is trying to push it, right? And he's trying to
Yeah.
say this is what we should do. And he's spinning an idealistic version of Earth 2
Yeah.
that didn't really exist. I mean, if you look at the comics in the 1970s and 80s, they did depict Earth 2, and they didn't paint it so idyllic. They had the same kind of problems Earth 1 has, or we have it today. Now, the heroes may be a little more tried and true, but all heroes were back then. Even the Earth 1 heroes were that good back then. So it's nostalgia through rose-tinted glasses dramatically. I mean,
Mm.
Earth 2 was not perfect by any means.
Do you think this could be maybe one of the reasons for all that violence? Because, what I've seen of the Golden Age, and I would say even the Bronze Age, or maybe I'll say I have more experience with Silver and Bronze, that lighter tales, less stakes. I think there
Yeah.
was definitely stakes, but they weren't as high. And so almost as in like a meta way, like look at all this violence, but we could go back there. Do you think that could be another reason for having this uber violence and be like, well, we could be back in the golden age, silver age,
They
etc.
could be trying to draw that comparison, yeah, because in the Silver Age it was, biffo, and it was
Yeah.
over, so it could very well be that that's what he was trying to contrast, but
Yeah.
it was pretty extreme, man.
Yeah. What do you think about their desire to create this perfect world? Do you think it's you can relate to this? Or do you think it's just a
Um,
dangerous idea and we shouldn't try to do this?
I mean, certainly messing around with reality is a bad idea anyway. Smashing planets together is never a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think it comes, well, let's hear your answer because mine's going to be a lot more meta about the
Oh,
writing and the
about
editorial side. So you go ahead.
sure. Oh, I did find the generational. So we can I did find it.
Okay.
Um, I think that it is understandable. I think that we've been told, not shown, that they've been through a tough time and they remember nostalgia, as you say, but through rose-colored glasses of this great time. And so now it's a bad time for them. People are dying, as we see with Lois and her decrepit body, and they want to go back to, to this beautiful time. But I think it is dangerous because they're just trying to wholesale like change everything. And I think this is very relevant, I think, with today. Like we can't just get rid of people, we can't just change people, and their natures, but we have to take what we have now and I think, to a certain extent through virtue as well as very much through love, try to fix or work with what we have and make it better and kind of get along. And so I think that's their issues. Like they were not willing to do that. They weren't willing to take what they had and try to work with that and be heroes and change that. They just wanted to get rid of what they were looking at because they did not like it. So I think that's where it becomes dangerous because they're
Yeah.
just trying to ignore like reality.
Now, to be fair, they were stuck in that crystal
That's also
pocket
true
universe watching our
for a long
world.
time.
They did give it 20 years until they
Yeah,
decided to start messing with it. But
that is true. Yes, what a
so
time.
I'm gonna talk about it more on a meta perspective, and one of the other questions is comparing it to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And what it
Oh,
really comes down to is this nostalgia idea is a bad pill. Like Crisis on Infinite Earths, the first one was created to celebrate 50 years anniversary of DC Comics. It was to celebrate all the characters, all the publishing. That's what the whole point of it was. That's why there's so many characters in Crisis, is they're actually trying to celebrate all 50 years and all the characters. And Infinite Crisis is not celebrating the DC universe. It's trying to celebrate 20 years since Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's its job, is to celebrate 20 years of Crisis. So it's coming at this rather than celebrating at that point 70 years of DC history, it's celebrating the nostalgia of one particular comic 20 years ago.
mm,
And it's so nostalgic, or the writing of it and the creating of it was so nostalgic that it did a disservice to the story. And that's why I think a lot of the story falls flat, is because it is so tied to Crisis instead of telling its own story. And we talked about already, they try to shock the reader instead. It doesn't feel like it comes from a place like, whereas the original Crisis, again, celebrating 50 years, it came from a place of love. This does not feel like it comes from a place of love. This feels like it comes from a place of nostalgia.
yeah,
And I don't think that's a healthy way to do it. And for that fact, I don't feel like this story stands on its own. I think without the knowledge of Christ, and maybe you muddled through, so maybe I shouldn't be so critical. But I think without the knowledge of Crisis on Infinite Earths, I don't think the story is easy to understand or make
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I would say that, yeah, you're right that I muddled through. I mean, the main characters at the beginning, they're coming from Crisis on Infinite Earths and not recognizing the import of that particular story, I think hampers your reading potentially. So because I read that after. I remember going on
Yeah.
eBay and getting the whole in little bags and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, the do you think that DC is, because we talked about Trinity, so we don't have to talk about this too long because we mentioned it, that they're less of a focus. Is it more about this next generation of heroes? And did you see that maybe they want to push them more than the Trinity?
It's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, and I don't know if it was intentional, but you're right. Superboy is a lot more of the focus. Power Girl, even though she's not young like the other characters, but she is technically the next generation. I mean, she
Yeah,
is the Superboy's cousin. Um, I think you could make an argument that the younger set and Bart Allen do get a
yeah,
lot more
getting older.
in recognition. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that makes an interesting point I hadn't considered.
Yeah, just yeah, something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't want to talk about the massive destruction and taking accountability.
Well, I think that comes out in all the other, like the discussion we've already had about the violence. I mean, I think that
Yeah,
covers a
it
lot
is
of that.
true. It does seem like as Kal-El and Kal-El are fighting, that it seems to destroy an entire city. and you're zoomed in so you can only see them beating each other, but then at the very end when Wonder Woman is, it's like, wow, I think they destroyed this. And then at the very end of the story, aren't they like rebuilding Metropolis or whatever? Oh, and Bloodhaven is like exploded by an
Yeah,
atomic bomb of some
yeah.
sort.
A
uh
chemical atomic bomb, essentially. Yeah,
that's
which is
pretty
awful. I mean,
nuts. Yeah.
millions of people there.
Yeah, they're dead.
That was a little too much.
Yeah.
That was also another example of extreme violence.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, you talked about the Earth 2 and the rebuilding. Like, one thing that's a little confusing about this story, and again, this feels like editorial couldn't make its mind up, right? It's all about bring back the multiverse, bring back the multiverse. So
Yeah.
they bring back the multiverse for a few pages, and then they collapse it all back down to one Earth at the end, right?
Yeah.
But then, immediately starting this is the series 52, which by the end of that, we find out that no, in fact, they did bring back the multiverse. So it almost feels like editorial couldn't make up their mind on
Yeah.
what they were going to do there.
Yep. They're half foot in, half foot out sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Do you think that there is a correct reality or a correct Earth or a correct number of Earths as a fan?
I have a lot of friends that think the multiverse as it existed before Crisis on Infinite Earths is the way to go.
Okay.
But I became a fan with Crisis, so I call myself a post-Crisis baby.
Okay.
So I prefer my preference. I'm not saying it's right, but my preference is the Earth from like 1986 till 2011. The post-Crisis DC universe is to me what feels like home. So now that, in Rebirth era, they've tried to bring a lot of that back, but to me, a singular Earth is what feels right. Do you
Yeah.
think there's a correct Earth? I mean, the one we live on's maybe the right
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. I like having one just because I would love all of the, heroes to be together. But I do recognize that there are some people maybe that we miss. Like maybe I would like a Helena Wayne that we might not get because of. So if we had two would maybe be the ideal. Kind of have those fun little stories over there.
Name
I
two more characters that are missing besides Helena Wayne.
named two more.
Yeah,
Peace out.
that are missing that that
No,
that hurts and matters. Because
that
I don't know
hurts
that
and
they're right.
matters.
Like people miss Helena Wayne and things like that. I don't know that beyond Helena Wayne there are that many
Oh,
more that
well,
we've lost.
originally, well, this is like this well, JSA was not on the original Earth, right?
They were on Earth 2. They were not on
Right.
Earth
Yeah,
1.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Okay.
lost we lost
Are we
Superman, Batman,
okay
and Wonder
having
Woman.
them on Earth one with everybody? Or could they not be on their own little planet?
I'd much rather have them on the same Earth. I'd much
Okay.
rather see Alan Scott team up with Hal Jordan, or I'd much
Yeah, I
rather
guess that's
see
true. Yeah.
that the JSA inspired the creation of the JLA. I'd rather
Yeah.
see that.
I mean, I will say that maybe Power Girl's history wouldn't be so complex.
It's true, but we still have Power Girl.
Yeah, it
The,
is
the point
true.
I'm trying to make is the people who say exactly like you said they miss Helena Wayne and things like that. I
Yeah.
get that. I totally do. But I think it's only a handful of characters. I mean,
Okay.
you could say, oh,
Yeah.
well, we lost the Golden Age version of Green Arrow. Okay, but we still have a Green Arrow,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
it's not that different.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will say I did like seeing our daddy, Ted Grant.
Zaddy.
Yeah, our Zaddy, Ted
Ted Grant
Grant.
was in here. That was nice. Yep,
Like
yep.
seeing him.
Teaming up with the Teen Titans.
That stud muffin.
He is. He is.
I think yeah, the last couple questions is just probably looking outside of it. Do you feel like Infinite Crisis, quote unquote, fixed the DC universe? Did it do what it set out to do?
Um, temporarily, I guess. Like the this miniseries, it's hammering home the idea, and this is kind of a big point for me. It keeps hammering over the idea that the DC universe got too dark, it got too
Hmm.
gritty, right? And that people are trying to bring it back to a place of happiness and positivity. Well, DC has this terrible, repetitive problem of swerving to the grim and gritty, and then apologizing for it and saying we're done being dark. And then a couple years later, they swing right back the other way. It just keeps, it's a pendulum that keeps going back. It's okay. A pendulum that keeps going back and forth every few years. And it's ridiculous. And now I'll just give you some recent examples. This goes all the way back to the 80s, but yeah, the new 52, right? It's all brand new, right? But then it got pretty darn dark. Then they said, we're sorry. Here's DC Rebirth. They did a whole thing, Rebirth special, where Wally West came back. Oh, it's all going to be better, which then led to death metal. Then that was too dark and slimy and gross. And then they brought us back to Dawn of DC. Everything's going to be better now. We're back, the Age of Heroes, etc., whatever. Then we go right to the absolute universe, which is interesting, but is specifically a universe created with darkness at its heart. It's this trend started in the 80s, and DC
Mm.
just keeps doing it, and they never learn. So to answer your question, did it fix the DC universe? Temporarily, until that was 2006. It fixed things till probably somewhere around Blackest Night by 2009, when things got really dark and gross again.
Do you think this is like our tendency as humans? Is that what's happening? That this is just darkness is an outpouring of us, and that's what's going on with DC? That they're trying their best to have uplifting stories, but it's just external and internal forces that are creating, pushing these writers to do dark stories.
It's a good question. Do you think, though? I love when your questions surprise yourself.
Well, this is see, I ask the questions so that the
Right?
person answers first and I can consider as
I
they're
know.
talking. So
And now
this
I'm
is
throwing
this
it
is
back to you.
why. Yes, you have brought it back to me. It's got to come from somewhere because I will speak from personal experience in regards to Barbara Gordon, that Barbara Gordon in no way I think should have dark storytelling involved. I
Hmm.
think she can have some meaty storylines and maybe like touch some heavy stuff, which she did. Obviously, getting shot is not a walk in the park.
Hmm.
And she's got to deal with that trauma. But the new 52 was, which I've reconciled now. Gail Simone was pushed to do that, but it was just way too far. And so I'm just like, where is that necessarily coming from? Where she's supposed to be this bright beacon. And so I think if that is the nature of that character and you're pushing her outside of her nature, so it's got to come potentially from somewhere. And I think it came from editorial that they're like, we need this to be like this. Not necessarily Gail Simone, because I feel like her Birds of Prey was pretty tepid in terms of tone. I think there were some heavy storylines for Birds of Prey, but mostly it was, I would say, lighter. So potentially, I mean, otherwise, I just don't know where it's coming from. I mean, some people are meant to be like Batman just lives in the shadows. And that's if I saw him hopping around, having fun, playing with Condiment King, I'd be concerned. And I'd be like, what's going on here? But if people saw Superman in these really dark storylines, I think that they would be upset.
Yeah.
So I just don't know, and this repeated behavior, like that's an issue. If what you're saying, I never recognize those trends, but it's something that's drawing people back to that. I don't know if they think the world at large is looking for these dark titles, but I feel like the world at large is not looking for this because our day to day is pretty awful of like what we're witnessing on
Yeah.
the news and living with. And comics are a way to escape, but also to look at reality, right? Because obviously, we don't want it to be like super off the wall, but it also needs to like not constantly bring our attention to what's happening and I think bring us joy and excitement in reading it. So I'm a bit puzzled as to why this is the trend.
I think you make a lot of great points, and I think part of it is the someone comes along and says it's time to shake up the status quo. Is what happens. Like, oh, well, we've been telling the same story. Time to do that. And it really begins in around 1985, actually, with Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
So that was where that trend really, and by the way, here we sit 40 years later, and two of the books people still talk about, Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, and they keep making movies on these things. So DC sees that these dark stories create money, they create revenue. Even 40 years later, they're still creating revenue. So I think DC's drawn to some of that in some
Yeah.
regards, like, what made money for us before? I mean, that's why they keep talking about the death of Superman. That's why they keep talking about Crisis. That's why they keep talking about those two books I just mentioned, because those made money for DC and they still make money for DC. So I think that could also play a role in what drives them to the darker storytelling.
Yeah. Okay.
So before we get into the bigger picture, there was one question I
Oh,
wanted to address, an
yeah.
earlier one, talking about continuity and about whether
Oh,
this story makes continuity feel meaningful or burdensome. And I
oh,
kind of
sure.
answered that. I kind of don't. Like, there's decades of continuity, and as I said, I don't. I've already mentioned it, so I do think that if you didn't know Crisis, it's a struggle. But obviously, you muddled through.
Hmm.
But one of the related problems about continuity is the continuity within the series itself. There are so many storylines going on that do not get resolved in the series itself. You have to go elsewhere to read about them. You know, you're following Crispus Allen from Gotham Central at one minute, where they're looking for someone named Corrigan. The next minute, he's dead,
Yeah.
and the Spectre's inside of him. How did that even happen?
Yeah.
You know, or the space rift out there with all these Earth heroes and Green Lanterns and people that are fighting the rift. You know that doesn't you don't really understand it. You
Hmm.
don't know why the new Kronos is out there. I mean, none of it seems to make a lot of sense. Although I will say one of my favorite moments in the whole book comes from that. It's in the opening of I think issue 2, where Animal Man is, he's living his
Animal
suburban life.
Man.
Animal Man, and he's living a suburban life, and he's just digging through his closet. And he's like,
Where's my
"Honey,
super suit? Yeah.
where's my spacesuit?" She's like, "I threw it out." He's like, "Oh, Adam Strange gave that to me. What if I see him?" It's the most beautiful, perfect suburban moment that sums up Buddy Baker perfectly. So I love that moment. But even him goes out into space, and I don't really know that that got resolved for them. I mean that I guess that's where the kitchen ends up, where Alex Luthor's smashing planets together. But Donna Troy, Cyborg, Metamorpho, Airwave, we were following them. What happened? And I do
Mhm.
know that they end up, somewhere like the 52 part of that is about them being on another side of the galaxy or whatever. But it feels like the continuity itself within the story is so burdensome that it doesn't necessarily parts of the story feel complete, but a lot of it doesn't feel complete.
Yeah. And Linda and Wally,
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
just disappearing. Yeah. Do you think that comes again to, because some of those, wouldn't you be able to go to that particular, could I go to Flash
Yeah.
and
Well,
then also see
actually,
what happens?
I think Flash was canceled at that point.
Oh,
Well, the whole idea was they were going to make Bart Flash.
yeah.
And they did it for about 12 issues and it failed miserably. And
Oh,
they de-aged Bart and just kind of flipped it right back.
of course.
It didn't go well.
Okay.
Um, and they brought Barry Allen back because, that's a thing.
Yeah.
But the idea would be to lead you to other books, but maybe
Yeah.
it's because I read the trade version. Maybe the printed comic had more. Go read, Flash number 244. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they did a better job of, because I know Crisis on Infinite Earths would do that, but they would say, "Oh, why is Blue Devil hanging out with the Omega Men? Go read Blue Devil number 19." At least they
Yeah.
led me to where I needed to go. I didn't see any of that in this trade collection I read.
No, same for me. And it's been a while since I've read the single issues. It'd be interesting. You know how some people are, they have their own idea of what order you should watch the Marvel films.
Right.
And there's like the perfect list where you watch like 5 minutes of, Captain America, and then you watch dot dot dot. The
Perfect.
perfect, well, I don't know, but the perfect way would be if they had the omnibus and it was put in such a way that once some of those story beats happened, it pulled in those particular issues. So then you could see, that would be the
They're
way to
doing
do
that
it.
with Crisis on Infinite Earths right now.
Are
They're
they?
releasing 4 volumes. I think it's 4 volumes where it's like 4 issues of Crisis,
Yeah.
and then all the time. Now, I don't think they're breaking up an actual issue
Oh,
of
okay.
Crisis, but it's like
Yeah,
you read Crisis, and all the relevant tie-ins
I
happen right there.
see.
You can read them right there. So,
Oh, yeah, that would be nice and
yep.
helpful. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for that insight. I appreciate it.
Or grousing, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, no worry. Well, we know that Jeff Johns was attacking you, so this is the way to air your dirty laundry.
And I want to be honest. I mean, at this point in 2003, I was to 2005. I was a massive Jeff Johns fanboy. I mean,
Yeah.
at Dragon Con I mentioned that in 2000. I was stalking his table and just trying to have every conversation I could with the guy. I just was
Yeah.
like, I thought he hung the moon. And I think 2005 is a because some people feel pretty strongly they don't like his stuff. I feel like 2005, 2006 when he did this is when things started to change.
Yeah.
Because I think his writing definitely takes a turn here where it becomes a little more confrontational with the fans.
Crazy. Can't believe he killed off one of his own, little
Hmm.
Connor. Um, how does it compare to Crisis on Infinite Earths in scope and purpose? Do you feel like we
That was
could
the one
compare
actually I already
related?
addressed. Yeah, I
Okay,
already
that's
addressed this
okay.
one.
That's
Yep.
fine. We'll skip it. Thank you. I thought maybe, but I at least
Yeah.
wanted to say.
It's okay. I'm glad you
Uh,
listened.
yeah, absolutely. Which that might have been the time I was trying to find evidence. Um, I think I would just end with this one. Would the DC universe be better or worse without events like this?
It's a hard question. Probably worse because it did generate a ton of creativity in the lead up. I mean, the lead up was super exciting. Also, as I mentioned earlier, it boosts sales. You know, that's hard to argue with. So the DC universe would probably be worse without these giant global spanning events. I mean, we love seeing our heroes team up. We
Mm.
love seeing our heroes fight villains from other bad guys, things like that. So I would have a hard time arguing that.
Yeah.
What
I
about you?
think, yeah, would it be worse? I'm just trying to think because I just, Marvel when I was in it and just like Avengers versus X-Men, it just seemed like all of these events were happening all the time.
Well, there's
There's a
event
limit.
fatigue, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a limit. So I would say not having the opportunity to see these team ups would be sad. So I think, we can't discount it. But I think timeline wise, 10 years seems pretty good when you get to do it every year, which it really had become. I would say it's like there's always a summer event, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is way too much. And then you feel left out if you aren't covering it. I think there's just a limit, and we need to. I wish we thought less with the monies and more with, are we doing good storytelling? That sort of
Even
thing.
once a year would be better than what's been going on. I mean, like DCOCD, which is a great podcast, was covering stuff, and they pointed out like 2023, like it was basically nonstop
Oh
back-to-back
no.
events. Like one would
Yeah.
literally end, go to the next, to the next, to the
It's
next, to
too
the next,
much.
and it's just it's exhausting.
Yeah.
So one of the questions you did skip, which I think is worth
Oh,
is
okay.
which moment best defines Infinite Crisis for you?
Yeah. Well, I looked at it and I thought, well, I think that he won't have one.
Oh, he does. What does she though?
It's a good question, Stella. Thank you for asking. I would say that there are two moments and they're both sad. The first moment would be I believe, the iconic recreation of a Superman cover,
Hmm.
which is Kal-El.
Yep.
Kal-El, sorry, Kal-El holding a VW bug maybe and trying to smash Kal-El. And I think not only speaking to nostalgia, referring back to that as well as that, would that be technically golden age?
Yeah, this cover of
Yeah.
Action Comics #1. Yep.
Yeah. And also, I think really epitomizing the emotional struggle that Cal L is going through, I think, in that. And then it's ramped up to this unfortunate fight. The other one, I think, is just the scene with Connor, and I can't remember what he says. It's very sad. Just that, he was wrong. I am a hero. And,
Hmm.
people are crying around him because like, I think that that one's the big death, for me. That was very traumatic. And, yeah. So those would be the two. They're both sad, but it's almost like if we step out of it, you're like, you did this event and you cost us this great character. So you could also, say that sort of thing. But that death actually landed well. So that was the one of them amidst all the bloodbath.
I would love if your listeners could tell me if this is right or wrong. I want to say I had heard that the whole reason they killed Superboy
Oh no.
was because of a legal battle with the estates of Siegel and Schuster
Oh
and the rights over
no.
using the name Superboy because they had gotten recognition for creating Superman, but they hadn't gotten recognition for creating, Superboy as well, because that's a what do you ever call it, an ancillary character or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think I had heard they killed Superboy for that reason.
Oh, that's
Um,
terrible.
yes, but for me, thanks for asking. The moment that best defines
You're
Infinite
welcome.
Crisis is when Power Girl is talking with Superman of Earth 2 and Lois Lane of Earth 2, who you're right, does look decrepit in that scene. But Lois puts her hand on Power Girl, and when she does, there's this great half-page shot of Kara. She's throwing her head back, sort of almost in
Oh
agony,
yeah.
within a million shots of her life on Earth 2, and it
Yeah.
all comes flooding back. And I love that moment. Also, I love her journey throughout the whole thing because you're seeing her having the nostalgia for Earth 2, but she's also aware of her history on the post-crisis Earth, and she's trying to make it all work. She's trying to make everyone be friends, and why can't we have both? And for me, Power Girl's one of the centers of this whole miniseries.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's big. That's a big thing to give him. Oh, I found it. Um, he said I wasn't the real Superboy. He was wrong. I just forgot for a little while.
Oh, powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I loved that page as well. I mentioned that later. Thank you, or earlier. Thank you for listening to me because I thought that it was
I
that
did
was
hear you say it.
the show over tell for
Hmm.
sure. Wow. Would you recommend this to somebody?
If they're a fan of DC Comics already, yes.
Okay.
If they were not a fan, if they weren't enough to know who the Teen Titans were,
Yeah.
most people know who the Justice League is, right? The Super Friends, Justice League, whatever. Lots don't know who the Teen. I mean, if you don't know a good handful of characters, I would not recommend this to somebody. No, I
Okay.
think it'd
Yeah.
be maybe impenetrable. I don't know.
Oh. Yeah, I wonder if now it's even worse than
Oof.
2006 Impenetrable. Yeah, it is not new reader friendly
Right.
unless you're willing to do some work, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that there are better stories that you could potentially read, great team ups. Yeah, I even hesitate to say maybe Identity Crisis, whether
It's
that is kind of
standalone enough.
layman's. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And they take a lot of time establishing, Sue and Ralph, all of issue one is establishing their wonderful love.
Yeah.
So even if you don't know the characters, you fall in love with them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's better storytelling.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
true.
it's interesting. You mentioned Civil War earlier. So these came out pretty much the same
Very,
time.
yeah.
And I remember there was a lot of grass is greener switching of teams by readers at
Oh,
this point. Like a lot of Marvel readers
it's
were not
interesting.
happy about Civil War, so they came over and started reading the Infinite Crisis lead up and got involved. A lot of other people weren't happy with DC, so they started reading Marvel. I'm actually one of those people that started reading. I mean, I've been reading Marvel off and on for years, but Civil War got me re-engaged with Marvel. I got
Yeah.
so excited about it. I was reading every time with Civil War. So whereas this one disappointed me,
Hmm.
overall, like I said, about a 40 to 60. I'd give it a 40 out of a 100.
Whoa,
Well, I'm just saying,
that's an F.
well, I'm not saying, I guess the percent, I should put on a percentage wise, but oh well. Either way, like I said earlier, there's things I wish this didn't exist because of the Superman aspects of it. There's things I
Yeah.
didn't like. The lead up to it's phenomenal. This has a lot of letdowns for me. But either way, I think the grass is greener affected me too because I went on like Civil War. Yes, let's read more
Yeah.
Avengers. I was already reading Avengers, but yeah, I'll read Spider-Man. I'll read all these things.
Yeah. Civil War is great. If I had a Marvel podcast, I would absolutely cover Civil War. And I think that's where there was violence in terms of how it all started. Because who was it that exploded? Was it
Speedball.
Speedball?
Yeah.
Yeah, who then turned into
Penance.
yes, that was nuts. But other than that, I feel like appropriate, superhero violence, the deaths that were few, I think were impactful, like Giant Man question mark, right?
But there's a lot of people though that feel that like Tony Stark, and we're off the reservation
We
here, but
are.
they feel
That's
like
okay. That's
Tony
okay.
Stark
Yeah.
and Reed Richards were completely out of character in that
Oh,
story. So there's
well,
there's a,
my gosh, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of people that feel very strongly about a lot of that stuff.
That's
So
probably where Professor Cheapskate got his hate for Reed Richards. Reed Richards was a jerk, and I will just always remember Sue like they had sex for the last time. She writes the note. She's like, "I'm going," and then she goes down, and Namor is down there, and it was like he could hear her heart beating very quickly, and I thought, "My gosh, what's happening here?" So yeah, I love that story. Thank you so much.
this was a
Was this
blast.
too much of a, was it too much?
No, like
I'm
I said,
glad.
I knew the whole lead up. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have had to read 100 comics in the lead up to
No,
prep,
I'm
but
I'm not ready
thankfully
for
it's all up there. I love it
yeah.
that much, and
Well,
no, this was a lot of fun because
I'm so
I
glad.
I've talked about Infinite Crisis a few times on various podcasts, and maybe I come to a different place every time I do it. I don't know, but it's a lot to take in and reread, and I think there's a lot of things I find
Yeah.
in there that maybe I didn't see the last time. So no, this was great, and it's
I'm so
always
glad.
love having a chance to talk to you and
Yeah, absolutely. And
being a
now we'll
guest on a
see what
show such as this.
yeah. And now we'll see, of course, what 1 year later looks like for Barbara Gordon. So
Yeah,
that'll
yeah.
be the next thing. Yeah. Well, where can people, listeners, watchers, viewers, where can they find and support you?
They can find me over at the Fire and Water Podcast Network, which, by the way, those of you who are on episode 246 of this podcast probably don't even realize Stella has a show over on the Fire and Water
That is
Podcast
true.
Network.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Dear Reader, and it's go by season now. So this is Dear Reader, comma, season 3.
There we go. So she's been producing the show for 3, 4 years. I think you took a year off, so like 4 years or so with us.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled to have her on our network. We feel very fortunate to have her on our team.
Thank
And
you.
you can find me over there talking about all kinds of comic book things, mainly the Justice Society of America on JSA Presents. And I talk a lot about the 1990s in that era. And then I'm also doing a show on Marvel Star Wars comics. I'm covering specifically the comics between Empire and Jedi. So covering all of those from Marvel Star Wars. Also talking about anything I want on Once Upon a Geek. So coming up, or I'm not sure when this is dropping, but I'm going to be talking about What If, a couple issues of What If, just for
Oh,
fun
okay.
on there. And I'm also on the Who's Who Review podcast, where we cover the Who's Who, the definitive directory of the DC Universe, where we cover that issue by issue. Now we've finished all of it. Now we're going character by character, just having some fun.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. And this 2026 Friends is the year that Stella takes over the Fire and Water Network. I've been threatening it for years, and now the time has come.
You might want to start by figuring out what the name of the actual network is,
What
but
did
that's
I
okay.
say?
You did Fire and Water Network. It's Fire and Water
The Fire.
Podcast Network.
That's okay. When I'm in charge, I can drop the podcast.
That's true. That is
Yeah,
true.
can do what I want. Yeah,
Bring it
no,
on.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it was a rigorous audition process to even get on the network, friends. I just have to say, but
Just want to be clear, when she said
but
she
I
was going to
made
join the
it.
network, she was going to bring us a Kitty Pride show. Instead, we got what do we Jane Eyre. So I'm just saying.
Well, who wants another recap, or a coverage podcast? It's a lot of work.
That's
You
me
do
raising my
on
hand.
on
That's
Kitty
me raising my
Pryde
hand.
specifically. I mean, I love Kitty Pryde, but it's a lot. Maybe once Batgirl Oracle ends because it's reaching its conclusion potentially.
Is it really?
I mean, 2006. I started this in 2009, so I'm about to reach the tail end of the snake,
Hmm.
which is
Okay.
kind of
So
nuts.
you
So,
feel like that's so, okay. All right.
I mean, end
There's
where
not
I
more to talk about
began.
after that.
I guess if the current titles are, fit my fancy, this Barbara Gordon breakout, I guess we'll see. But I still have,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got Birds of Prey to finish. I would love to have Gail Simone on the show and talk to her about her run. So I mean, it's still going, but yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I'm nearing 300 episodes. Been going for 16 years. So,
People realize each episode's like 3 hours long. Do you
well,
know how
this
much
one is,
time
yeah,
you've done?
the editing. No, that, yeah, I don't even want to, years probably, if you were to think about it. Yeah, I wouldn't
Hmm.
be surprised. Thank you so much though. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I always appreciate your knowledge, which is another reason why I ask you on because I have gaps in my knowledge, as you say. I said Jim Shooter. So it's great to have someone who has been there and understands the biz more than I. So yeah, lovely.
I appreciate it. It's been an absolute blast. It's always so much fun chatting with you. You're a dear
Yeah.
friend. We don't get to talk nearly
Yeah.
enough.
Very
So,
sad. Yeah.
and I appreciate you considering me to be on the show. I'm honored.
Absolutely. Well, remember, you can send any questions or comments to batgirltheoracle@gmail.com. And if you have any grievances with Shag, or if you know about Superboy and the lawsuit, you can send that his way. What's your email address? Do you like to give that out?
Oh, you can just find me on any social media. It's probably the
Oh, there
easiest
you
way to
go.
find me.
Yeah, there you go.
Usually is Once Upon a Geek is where you'll
Oh,
find me.
yes, yes, yes. Like the show on Facebook or Twitter, which is now X at Batgirl the Oracle. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version, as you're seeing here. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And do you want to do our closeout? But do you remember what it is? Fly on, Babs lovers. Okay.
Fly on, Babs, butt lovers.
Oh my gosh. And until next time. That's when you say it. See,
Oh, that's what we
oh
say.
my
Oh,
gosh.
okay. Is that how we
And
do it? Okay.
until next time.
Fly on, Babs, butt lovers.
My gosh.
Well, we can talk about Nightwing's butt all day long, but we can't talk about Babs.
Yeah, that's double standard.
Well, how? What? Oh, thanks. Okay. I'm just saying,
I'm giving the
Babs has
double
got it going
standard.
on. She's
I'm
got it going
sure.
on.
There's the
So
irredeemable coming through right at
she's
the end.
hot.
There you go.